Welcome, Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 primal scents that spark female desire. And in my last video, I talked about Rasasi Dylan Blue, a fragrance that has a ton of ambroxan, which is synthesized ambergris. And once it hits the musk in the dry down, it has some really strange effects on women. Ambergris is the stomach lining of a sperm whale. It's expelled in the ocean, floats to the surface. It's surrounded by sea salt, and it gets very, very fresh, but it is also animalic. And when that animalic quality mixes with the musk in the dry down of Rasasi Dylan Blue, strange things happen. Now that's theory, but in practice, a couple years ago, I worked with a ton of women, and every time I wore Dylan Blue, odd things happen. I remember one time with a woman who I knew hated my guts, asked repeatedly to smell my neck. Now, she was going against her conscious wants and desires because there was something primal about the scent that attracted her. And some of the compliments that I got bordered on sexual harassment whenever I wore certain fragrances that had animalic qualities. And for me, look, I'm bald, I'm old, and at the time I was 50 pounds heavier. It got really weird. And look, I know you guys don't believe me. One day it'll happen to you, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it now. Weird things happen. I've got 8 animalic fragrances today. Fragrance number 1, this is Kenzo Homme EDP, and this is a Quentin Bish marine aquatic fragrance line. So what on earth would that be doing on a list like this? Pretty simple. This has a ton of leather in the mid, so much so that it changes the entire feel of the fragrance. So it opens with C notes. It's got that very heavy leather note in the mid, and then it ends in patchouli. Now, those are the listed notes. Guaranteed there are more woody notes in this. The press release for this says it opens like an ocean breeze. And that's true if ocean breezes had tons of leather in it, because my God, the leather, the opening of this, and that's my favorite. Like the first couple of minutes, you just get this blast of freshness mixed with the leather. It's spectacular. The leather dies down a bit. It's still there. It's still always there. And this fragrance lasts a really, really long time. I'm not sure if it's the leather or the longevity that make this so popular, but it is much more popular than all the other Kenzo Homme fragrances, and that's why I bought it. Number 2, this is La Yuqawam by Rasasi. This is the closest I ever came to buying a full bottle. Without doing so, I literally had just to press the button to confirm the sale. And yeah, money problems, so I didn't. But I love this, and this is a very dark animalic leather, often compared to Tuscan leather. Now, whether it's a clone or not, I mean, it's very similar. I don't know if it's an exact clone, but it is a lot more expensive than your traditional clone. And in terms of performance, it is a beast mode in terms of both projection and longevity. And that longevity is the big difference between this and your standard clones, which, I mean, you know, they last maybe 6 hours. This thing is beast mode. It's 10 to 12. Now, in terms of leather, there are 2 leather notes, both leather and suede. There is a raspberry note to break the whole thing up. But what I love about it is, and you find this with niche fragrances, you know, the difference between a niche and a designer fragrance can be tiny, but it's the little details that make the difference. And in this case, they have a little hint of fresh saffron and olibanum, which is a fresh resin. And that little bit of freshness kind of sparkles and it just gives it like a final touch that makes it smell expensive, makes it smell exclusive. And then this is a reasonably priced fragrance. It's not going to cost you a bundle, and I guarantee you I'll get a bottle. Fragrance number 3 is Dior Sauvage. Now, you don't have to like this. This is a video about attracting women on an animalic level. It's got nothing to do with you, whether you like it or not, or whether you find it boring. But I mean, come on. Dior spent millions of dollars on their advertising campaign and their marketing to get this DNA. And I mean, it just works. That's why it's the #1 selling men's fragrance at the moment and has been for some time. Now, in terms of the dry down, I really do think in my personal experience that Dylan Blue worked better for me in sort of a practical test situation. It definitely did. However, there's still tons of ambroxan in this, and its formulation is quite similar. The advantage here, though, is the performance is a lot better. Dylan Blue's performance is very good. This is excellent. You're talking, again, for me anyway, 10 to 12 hours, beast mode fragrance, but the projection is really, really strong. What this does, though, is instead of bringing out the animalic component of the ambroxan, which Dylan Blue does, these guys go to town with pepper, Szechuan pepper, black pepper, and pink pepper. So what they emphasize with the ambergris is, or ambroxan, is the freshness. So it's like a very fresh ambergris, essentially, which is, you know, the animalic component. So it gets attention more. I don't know if it has the same animalic kick, but yeah, it'll work. Fragrance number 4, this is Toy Boy, and you cannot have an animalic video without having Toy Boy. Not a proper one anyway, because, I mean, if you look at the advertising campaign, that's exactly what they were going for. Now, they're a little bit cheeky. They got a sense of humor, you know, the way they couch this whole thing, you know, teddy bear and bondage gear kind of thing. But essentially, they were going for something animalic, something a little bit rougher. And I think they achieved their success. It's essentially a spicy rose fragrance with a lot of musk. Now, there's no musk note, but you got to look underneath the surface. There's a note on there called silcolide, which is an aroma chemical that is ambery musky. Then there's also cashmerein, which is a woody musky aroma chemical. So that's where you get the musk. And then you get a rose that's very different. It's a totally different kind of rose. And then you get the spiciness. So there's nutmeg, pink pepper, and the pièce de résistance is the cloves. So it makes the spiciness a dirty, pungent spiciness to sort of tone down that rose. It's not a feminine rose, and it ends up smelling very animalic and very different. And I struggle with this one sometimes. I only wear it when I'm feeling bold. Number 5 is Oud Pashmina by Montale, and the press release for this says it all. It says, Oud Pashmina envelopes you in a carnal veil of gray musk and rose. And boy, does it ever. This is oud done in a very animalic, carnal way. You can do it in different ways. You can do it in an exotic way. This one, that's what they're going for. People in the past have compared it to Ombre Nomade. I definitely think there's a lot of similarities. This is a little bit sweeter, and it's definitely muskier. That's the whole point of it. They specifically use gray musk, which is even dirtier than white musks. There's a lot of vanilla in it, so it's a nice sweet oud. And boy, when you're talking Montale, like that's the one thing. People have called on Montale screechy. They've said it's not truly niche, it's lower quality. But my God, when it comes to performance, they all perform. I've never tried a Montale. I've probably tried at this stage now. Only half a dozen, but all of them have been crazy beast mode. This one is no exception. Fragrance number 6, this is Amber Oud Black Edition, probably the least popular in the Amber Oud line because there's a lot of confusion about what it's supposed to be cloning. But at the end of the day, this has got to be top 5 for me in terms of performance for the money. So this thing, 10 to 12 hours. Absolutely no problem. It's essentially leather, benzoin. So it's a sweet leather, and it's got a kind of a licoricey vibe, and cardamom. So it's got all the good stuff in here. It's definitely a carnal feel, definitely a lot of leather. So you can see the animalic accord here is very prominent on this fragrance. It definitely comes off that way. The great thing about this one, though, it's got a sweet quality to it as well. The price is also really good for the quality. Very high quality presentation, very high quality scent. But in terms of wearability, like being pleasant, there's a sweetness to this that would appeal to a wide variety of generations. This is not just for old guy leather. This is quite a sweet leather fragrance too. Fragrance number 7, this is Escentric Molecules, Molecule 01. And the molecule in question here is Iso E Super. Now, this really doesn't fit perfectly the theme here, because a lot of people say when they put this on, they can't even notice it. People get very, very different kinds of feel putting on Iso E Super. And it's so weird because when I put it on, all I get is this deep, woody, musky, really strong, powerful scent. And I get it every single time. I did it just before the video, and my God, it's pungent. I don't know what it is about my skin chemistry, but for me anyway, and I'm sure there are others out there like me as far as this goes, that strong, woody, musky feel, it's definitely very masculine. I don't know if you'd call a woody note animalic. It feels that way to me, but I get a very, very musky fragrance here. Finally, we have Afro Leather by Maison Alhambra, and this is a clone of African Leather by Memo Paris. And this is a clone that is really cheap, and it took about 6 months. And when I first tried it, I'm like, eh. And now I'm like, it's one of the best purchases that I've made. The presentation overall is pretty good, but the initial fragrance wasn't very good. But this is one that really required a fair chunk of macerating if you can wait 6 months. And now it's something that I like to put on all the time. And obviously it is a leather fragrance, but it's not just leather. There's a lot of leather, there's a lot of musk, and there's a lot of oud even. Well, not as much oud, but there's a lot of leather and a lot of musk, so it's a very masculine fragrance. The weird thing about it, though, is the spiciness. There's also a ton of spiciness. There's cardamom and cloves. So it comes off as, I would say, a warm, spicy leather fragrance with a little bit of an animalic kick. The performance is really, really good. But yeah, the scent itself has improved so much. I wouldn't say it's number one, but it's definitely top 5 in terms of how the scent improved since I first got it. And at first, I didn't wear it much because I didn't really like it, but now I do. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys one day will experience what I experienced when I worked at that place. It was just, like I said, it got weird. And that's one of the reasons why I went full on with the channel, right? I went full on with the channel because I'm like, there's something here. There's something here. There's something about fragrances that is a little bit more than meets the eye, and yeah, so I went all in on the channel, and I'm glad I did. Thanks for watching.